In 2019, Joker became a global phenomenon, a film that not only grossed $1 billion, but also forced millions of people to rethink society, poverty, and injustice. Now, 5 years later, a sequel was made that turned everything upside down. At the Venice Film Festival, when the curtain rose, audiences saw something no one had expected. Not another social drama, but a dark musical with singing and dancing at the heart of madness. Some gave a standing ovation, while others angrily left the theater. But this was only the beginning. Joker 2 is fundamentally different from the first part, from the change in its message and atmosphere, to the unusual choice of Lady Gaga as Harley Quinn, to the enormous budget that put heavy pressure on the director. And in the end, the criticisms that led to the film earning less than everyone had anticipated. This is the true story of Joker 2, a film that once again divided the world of cinema into two camps: lovers and critics. When Joker, Folie à Deux premiered at the 2024 Venice Film Festival, everyone expected what they remembered from the first part: a dark, realistic, and heavy story about the downfall of a man crushed by society. But what appeared on the screen was something almost no one had predicted. A musical full of singing and dancing scenes, at the heart of Joker's psychotic narrative. The audience was shocked. Some were left stunned in the hall. Some began nervously laughing within the very first minutes. And by the end of the film, the reactions were divided into two completely opposite poles. One group gave a standing ovation and shouted that it was a masterpiece. Another group left the hall confused and even angry. These reactions were exactly what the media focused on. A film that was both praiseworthy and controversial at the same time. Critics also reflected exactly this duality. Publications like Variety and The Hollywood Reporter wrote that Todd Phillips' boldness in combining the musical genre with such a dark story was a reckless and risky act. Some critics said this was exactly what cinema needed, a different experience that goes beyond expectations. But in contrast, outlets like The Guardian and Screen Daily strongly criticized it. They believed that being a musical destroyed the core identity of Joker and turned the first film into an unrepeatable, unattainable work. One of the interesting reactions came from ordinary viewers. On social media, a wave of tweets and posts spread, with some jokingly saying, "I came to see Joker's mental breakdown, not a Lady Gaga concert." This sentence quickly went viral and became a kind of unofficial label for the film in the online space. But alongside these criticisms, there was also great admiration. Many cinema lovers admitted that although they were shocked at first, after a few days, the film lingered in their minds. The heavy music and musical scenes were interpreted not as moments of entertainment, but as a window into the minds of Joker and Harley Quinn. For example, one scene where Joker and Harley are singing in a psychiatric room was described by some critics as one of the most memorable cinematic sequences of the year. In the end, the reaction showed that Joker 2 is more of a cinematic experiment than a simple sequel. A film that forces audiences to either love it or hate it, but under no circumstances leave the theater indifferent. This was exactly what Todd Phillips wanted: to create a film that sparks debate, controversy, and even fights among cinema fans. When the first Joker was released in 2019, everything about it was unexpected. A film with a relatively low budget, made within DC's superhero world, yet it bore no resemblance to superhero films. It was a bitter and merciless story about a man named Arthur Fleck, drowned in poverty, loneliness, and social humiliation. The film had neither exaggerated visual effects nor a hollow hero. It was only a raw and naked image of a society that turns a fragile human being into a laughing monster. This was exactly what critics called a modern tragedy. But when Joker 2 hit the screen, everything had changed. This time, the brutal realism of the first part was gone. Instead, audiences entered a surreal world, one in which the boundary between reality and fantasy, between sanity and madness, is broken over and over. And the main tool for this transformation was music and dance. The difference was so striking that many critics believed if the two films didn't share the same title, it would be difficult to guess they were both part of a single narrative. In the first film, we witnessed Arthur Fleck's gradual downfall, a descent that was step-by-step logical and believable. But in the second film, we are confronted with a mindset that has no connection to reality anymore. The scenes are interwoven like musical nightmares, and Joker is now not only a victim of society, but also a man in love. In love with Harley Quinn, a woman who is as trapped in darkness as he is. This change was appealing to some. They said that Joker 2 presents, in a way, a more complete picture of the Joker's character. If the first film showed us how society crushes a human being, the second film showed us how love, madness, and music can drown that same person in an imaginary world. But in contrast, the opponents believed that this change destroyed Joker's core identity. For them, Joker must remain a symbol of violence and social protest, not a singer in a tragic musical. In fact, this comparison shows that the two films take two completely different approaches to the same character. Joker 1 is an anti-system film, an image of inequality and injustice. Joker 2, however, resembles more of a psychological experience, a mental journey that is less about society and more about Joker's troubled inner world and his relationship with Harley Quinn. Perhaps this is why some say Joker 1 is a classic masterpiece, while Joker 2 is more of a controversial and experimental film. One will remain in the collective memory as a social film, and the other as a different kind of experience that will either be admired or forgotten, or When the news of Joker's second installment was announced, the first question everyone asked was, why? The first film was made with a budget of about $55 million and grossed over $1 billion at the box office. An unimaginable success for such a dark film, without flashy action scenes and without Batman. For Warner Brothers, this was a goldmine. But for Todd Phillips, the film's director, things were more complicated. He had repeatedly said that Joker was a standalone story and should not have a sequel. So what made him change his mind? The answer was hidden in a combination of studio pressure and an unusual idea. Warner Brothers wanted a second installment because such success could not be ignored. But Phillips only agreed on the condition that he could try a completely different path. He didn't want to make the same film again. And that was when the idea of a musical was born. In the early screenplay sessions, Phillips told his team, If we are going to travel into Joker's mind again, this time we must see him from another angle. His mind doesn't work logically. It's more like a musical nightmare. This idea at first was even shocking to the studio executives. The thought that the sequel to the highest-grossing R-rated film in history would be a dark musical seemed impossible. But eventually, Phillips managed to convince them. Casting Lady Gaga as Harley Quinn was controversial from the very beginning as well. She was neither a traditional Hollywood actress nor a version similar to Margot Robbie, who had played the role in other DC films. But Phillips believed that Gaga, with her unique voice and eccentric personality, could be the best partner for Phoenix's Joker. According to sources close to the project, when the first screen test between Phoenix and Gaga took place, a strange energy emerged between them. A relationship full of madness and on-screen chemistry, something vital for the roles of Joker and Harley. From a production perspective, the film also had many challenges. Filming took place on real New York locations, but for the musical sequences, there was a need for massive set designs and complex lighting. The costs rose sharply, and the budget of the film reached over $200 million, almost 4 times that of the first film. This put enormous pressure on the filmmaking team, since the studio's financial expectations had grown just as high. Another interesting point is that Phoenix, once again, physically transformed his body for the role of Joker, just as he had in the first film. He lost a significant amount of weight again and spent hours practicing physical movements and dance routines, because this time he not only had to play a mentally ill man, but also sing and dance at the same time. Phoenix later said in an interview, "This was the hardest role of my life, because I had to make the madness believable and at the same time keep the rhythm of a musical. A strange combination I had never experienced before." All of these efforts show that Joker 2 was not an ordinary project. From the very beginning, it was meant to be something different, a film moving on the border between madness, music, and tragedy. When Joker Folie à Deux finally hit theaters in October 2024, everyone was waiting for it to break new records. The first installment had grossed over $1 billion, becoming the most successful R-rated film in cinema history. But reality was different for the second part. The film was made with a budget of around $200 million, almost 4 times that of the first film. This massive budget raised expectations significantly. Warner Bros. Hoped Joker 2 would at least repeat the previous commercial success. But just weeks after release, it became clear that this time things were more complicated. The opening weekend box office in the US was lower than the first film, and in the following weeks, sales continued to decline. In the end, Joker 2 could not come close to the legendary box office numbers of the first part. One of the main reasons for this was the lukewarm reaction from a large part of the audience. For millions of viewers who had connected with the first film, what they saw on screen was far too unexpected. They were anticipating another social drama, a dark and realistic film, but instead encountered a psychological musical. Many audience members, after leaving the theater, wrote, "We came to see a drama, not a concert." This gap between expectations and reality meant that some viewers had little interest in recommending the film to others. On the other hand, critics were also divided into 2 camps. Some respected outlets like IndieWire and Variety defended the film, describing it as a different and bold cinematic experience. But media such as The Guardian and The New York Times heavily criticized it. They argued that the musical format destroyed the narrative cohesion and weakened Joker's central message. This division turned Joker 2 into a film you either love or hate. But in either case, few considered it on the same level as the masterpiece of the first installment. In terms of awards, the situation was similar. While Joker 1 was nominated for 11 Oscars and won 2 major awards, including Best Actor for Phoenix, the second film at best managed to attract attention in categories like music and production design. Lady Gaga's performance was praised, but major awards such as Best Picture or Best Director remained out of reach. In the end, Joker 2 became more of an artistic debate than a commercial success. A film that dared to take a different path but paid a heavy price for that boldness. Some believe that, like other controversial works, this film will find a special place in the future. But at the time of its release, the reality was this: lower than expected box office, heavy criticism, and a deep rift among fans.